and grad school together on my own. And so kind of being a part of this campaign of I'm First, we did a video, we had alumni. It was such a great opportunity for students to see themselves amongst the alumni because many first generation students are students of color. And so to have alumni come back from this prestigious university and want to mentor with them and work with them and make sure that they have connections once they graduate was really a phenomenal experience for them to see that growth and see their own potential of like what's next for them. But also Engage Cornell allowed me to lead in many different ways than I'd never done before. Like I've never been on a panel before this. Like no one had ever asked me, like, what are your thoughts on critical service learning? Like, what do you know about Tania Mitchell? Like, why do you think it's so important for students to learn beyond the classroom? And how do we make those connections so that before they go, they're aware of their privileges and their cultural biases that they might be bringing? So Engage Cornell allowed me to kind of step on my soapbox every once in a while, but also connected me with Dr. Richard Kiley, who does global critical service learning and critical reflection, and with Tania Mitchell, and just expanded my own knowledge of this field of community engagement, whereas I was very much against volunteering, but volunteering is the first step of civic engagement. So I'll take it. And there's a spectrum of that, and I'll show that for you later. And then I just wanted to mention also that I am on the board of the International Association for Research on Service Learning and Community Engagement. I started out as a proposal reader just by chance, and then eventually I became a presenter. So when the organization went to Ireland 2 years ago, I presented with Engage Cornell on our research projects and how we were creating diverse student initiatives and inviting more students to engage in community engagement beyond, volunteering in the local community, but broadening to national opportunities like alternative spring break and then going over to India as well. And at this point is where I got poached to go to the University of Pennsylvania. I think I was at the IVG, which is like the first generation conference amongst the Ivies. And the vice provost for undergraduate education reached out to me and said, you'd be really great to come to Penn. And I was like, whatever. But in a span of 2 days, she reached out to me 3 times. And I was like, all right, this must be a sign. Let me apply. I applied. I got the job to be an associate director for the pre-freshman program and the college achievement program. And it was a wonderful experience. And this is where representation comes in. So before this, all of my supervisors had been either white women or white men, and they've been great. But they don't understand the struggles of being a woman of color trying to advance in this field of higher education. And if you look into the even smaller field of community engagement, it's many white men who are leading the field and leading the conversation. And I've always been one to kind of buck up against that. Like, well, that's your experience and that's the narrative, but what about my experience? Like, do you know how hard it is to want to be in service learning and you have to go into low-income communities that you're from or that you see similar people from? Like, that's a barrier, and that's like a psychological thing that those of us who are committed to engagement, we have to overcome in order for us to continue to do the good work that we want to do. It's something that I don't think enough of us are aware of. And so coming to Penn, my supervisor was an African-American woman. My super boss, the vice provost, was an African-American woman as well. However, once I got there, I didn't get the support to kind of initiate and create all the programs I wanted to. And about a year in, I knew I needed to leave and transfer. So, and by then I had spent about 10 years on the East Coast on my own and was having the itch of, if I know anything, I spent most of my time in California. It's weird to say as a New Yorker, but as a California, but that's where my driver's license is from. So I figure if anything, I can always go back to California and reset. And so I applied for the position at Cal State San Marcos last year, so October. 2 days ago was my year anniversary at Cal State San Marcos. I came as the assistant director for civic learning. And then this July, as of September 1, I became the director for service learning and civic engagement. I'm also tasked to be on the presidential task force for the election. So I'm the election person as well. And then just to add in some more fun, I decided that I should be a lecturer. So a general education lecturer for freshman students, and just kind of walking them through what is civic engagement. A lot of what Tazeen and Corinne were talking about, like, man, they would have been great speakers in my class. I would have loved to have had them, because I think civic engagement and community engagement is so important. Just so students know that they can be great now, they have an impact now, and it's not just about voting, but it's putting yourself out there and getting involved in the local community just as important to be involved in the national conversation. And then my last slide here is what's next. I've just been accepted into an educational doctorate program at UCSD and at San Marcos. So I'm excited for this opportunity because I really do have dreams of being a vice provost for undergraduate studies. I plan to kind of just plow away and make sure that every undergrad has some sort of a community engagement experience. I would love to be a practitioner scholar because I don't have a traditional student affairs background. I love the fact that I was a labor organizer. I love the fact that I was a community organizer. I think it gives me an edge on how to approach community partners and encourage reciprocity, but also just ensure that everyone has some form of critical reflection when they're thinking about their work. And then I would love to be an education consultant because I still love to travel. 2020 has canceled all plans to travel, but I think if I can be a consultant, I can maybe get out of the country once or twice out of the year. And then I added this little chart here of like, what is the spectrum of engagement? It goes from volunteerism to internships. And it just really depends on who's benefiting and what's the main focus. And for me, service learning is always in the middle because it has to benefit, it has to be 50-50. It has to benefit both the community, most importantly, but also for the students learning. It has to expand. And sometimes I tell my students, well, if you did it and you didn't enjoy it, but at least you know what you don't want to do. You know you don't want to be in a 9-to-5 working in front of a computer. So that means you need to pivot and find another opportunity. But at least you did it now in college where you can learn to get credit for it versus, you know, getting a job and you kind of stuck in it for the next 6 years. So yeah, I think that's it. I just added this last little piece, but I'm really excited about the opportunities. My hope is that by being a member of AUNW that I can really get some mentorship and have a network and just kind of grow and really begin to solidify who I am as a leader in higher education. So I really appreciate this opportunity and time to speak with you. I don't know if there's any questions, but thank you. Thank you.
Well, we have some questions, but before we start, Rochelle, I will not permit you to be only vice provost. I see you as the president of Cal State San Marcos, and I will keep pushing you as long as we know each other.
Well, thank you.
Why stop at vice provost? You're a perfect president.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see, everyone was so blown away by your background. I'm looking here to see, I thought I saw a question. There was one, you went into leadership from a very young age. How did you develop within yourself the confidence to lead, to tell other people, to direct, et cetera? When you were young yourself, it's hard to get that kind of authority. How did you do that?
It certainly is, because to be completely honest with you guys, I'm very much an introvert. And so for me, presenting and talking and leading is very much an exercise of grace. But I think it comes from my parents. My parents have just been vocal leaders. And my sister and I call them great characters, but they're leaders. They're willing to step up and see an injustice and just do what is right. They've always had big and open hearts. And so we've been graced to duplicate that effort. And so just for my parents and just knowing that what's the least that can happen is that people say no. The least I can go to sleep at night knowing that I tried and that I advocated for someone. And that's the very minimum what I want to do.
Wow. Well, I just think all of us, I'm looking at the comments, all of us are just kind of going with you three ladies, wow, I want to be like them when I grow up. That's certainly the way I feel. And I think everybody else does too. Like, golly, you know, we all have these lives, but look what they've done with theirs. And, you know, Corinna and Tazeen and Rebecca are just getting going. I mean, you know, they're just getting going. Who knows where they're going to end up? It's just absolutely remarkable and inspiring. I'll say to you on the part of everyone, because we all feel that way, when I look at you, I think that, you know, even though we're living in a pandemic this year, we've had very difficult election. We've had a difficult year in a lot of different ways, a divided year. I think that we can look at you three leaders and feel like the world's in good hands. They're in women's hands, and I'm a feminist. I think that the more women we have in positions such as yours, the better our world is going to be. But we certainly feel inspired by the three of you. We would love to have Tazeen and Corinna join us also, and I will be speaking with you privately about that. because our organization could only be better and richer with all three of you in it. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time. Tazeen had another Zoom, one of her organizations meeting this morning. And of course, Corinna, we're taking her from the, half an hour she allows herself per week to relax. So thank you, ladies, so much. And Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to say before we, yes. I think we can do maybe a gallery view and see everybody just clapping for you. Thank you so very much, and goodbye until soon.